That is the nature of fake Cal Parker. Alright, we're doing it. We're doing the news. I've had a little bit of work. I had a meeting, so it all kind of went a bit, But now I'm here. I'm ready, and we can do the news. Our fundraiser is still on, of course. Let me actually put it on because we are grinding funds, so I have to have this on at all times. Hold on. Browser, existing. I think this is it. Yes. It's a bit busted, but it kind of looks funny, so we are, there we go. We are fundraising $500 for very important goals. You would not even believe what important goals we are fundraising for. 123, blah, blah, blah. It's all good. We are fine. I'm gonna go grab something to drink and then we can begin the news in earnest. Also, yes, fake Cal Parker absolutely is a tall monkey girl thing. I'm gonna DM him. Doesn't matter. Alright. See that the chat is very shy, very not talkative. We're gonna start this off with news. We're gonna go over them. Trump's U-turn. How large will the U.S. force in Poland be? Apparently, it's 5,000 troops. I can already answer that question. And there's a question on whether or not it's something that Trump has concocted, or if it's something that has been whatever. We'll talk about it in a moment. I have a few seconds to grab a drink, grab a drink to increase sugar levels in my body. My body level sugars are low and they have to be high because I have to be high energy because I've been told I'm too low energy, and when I'm low energy I'm boring AF. I'm boring as AF, as when I'm not interesting I'm boring. Hold on. I have to turn on the second computer. I wanna have the chat on the second screen. Maybe once we do the news we'll restart stream and we'll do some cooler things like games. I know you people like video games. You people. What are you calling shy? My viewership, my audience is shy. Never talking to me. Maybe it's not that the viewership is shy. Maybe you all just hate me. Maybe it's hate like in Star Wars. I know you would. Your hatred makes you stronger. It gives you focus. Do it. It gives you focus. Makes you focused. You know? Stuff like that. So I'm ready to I definitely hate you. It's why I throw money at you. Thank you. You're making a capitalist out of me. Yes, yes. Thank you very much. I'm fundraising for important goals. And there are times when I have to grind more than usual, and this is one of those times when I just have to grind more, you know? Because of the goals that I have to meet in life. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? You're fired! Chamberlain falls apart. You're fired. Maybe? Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. Hold on. It's wrong chat. What the hell? Oh, there you go. No, this is... What the hell? I'm trying to... It keeps showing me the old stream instead of the current one. I want to view myself. I'm gonna give myself a like. Is that allowed? It's allowed for me to give myself a like? There you go. The more likes you have on YouTube, the bigger the probability that more people will see this and join. I'm gonna do some trans news as well because I'm a trans person, so I'm a token. I'm a token, so I need to do the trans news because otherwise it's just bad. It's bad for my health. Alright, let's start with some news. We're going to be discussing them. Ex-diplomat, US troops decision buys Europe time. Okay, let's... After Trump's U-turn, how large will the US force in Poland be? So there has been this talk about how the United States would withdraw its forces. I'm not a grifter. I'm not doing a grift. I'm sorry. If I was doing a grift, I'd be a right-winger right now. If I were a grift, I'd be telling that I'm a male. I know I'm a male and I'll never be a real woman. I'm one of the good trans people and I know how ugly I am and I'm a right winger and left wingers are lunatics and all that stuff I'll be doing right now. I'll be making videos about it and watching TikToks or whatnot. Hello, Maya Mayor. Okay, so the US wanted to withdraw 4,000 troops from Poland. That has been a big controversy, that has been a big tension point. The wider... Yeah, I am technically speaking a detransitioner right now. Actually, it upset me a little bit that you said it. It hit me. God, I am. Fuck. Oh man, I have to start over. I have to start over the segment. That actually upset me a little bit, not gonna lie. Whatever. It's fine. It is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, let's start from the top. Because I feel like I'm bumbling, and I haven't even started this segment yet. So let's start over from the top, okay? The United States wanted to withdraw 4,000 troops from Poland. The United States withdrawing troops from Europe, Poland at all is considered a security threat. It's considering punishing and abandoning one of the biggest allies of the United States in Europe, Poland. Even though Polish people have lost faith in America under Donald Trump, it does not change the fact that the government and the president of Poland, widely speaking, is pro United States. The government is less, but definitely the far right president is extremely pro Trump, which is why it was extremely surprising that the United States were apparently planning to abandon Poland in this way. But after a lot of conversations, after a lot of floundering about, it turns out that actually Poland will not be losing its troops, that the United States will keep troops in Poland, and Trump has alluded that it's because there's a far-right president right now in Poland. He even did a Truth Social about it. Or was it a tweet? I don't even know anymore. But it's this. Let me show you. It's this. Let's read this thing first, and then we're gonna go and read the article itself. This. Based on the successful election of the now president of Poland, Karol Nawrocki, who I was proud to endorse, which in itself is a little bit of a conflict of interest because the United States should not be interfering in Polish elections. By the way, not only did Trump endorse Nawrocki, the United States also, at the time of the election for the Polish president, accused the European Union in meddling in the Polish election, while actively meddling in the Polish election. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. So I was proud to endorse him and our relationship with him. I am pleased to announce that the United States will be sending an additional 5,000 troops to Poland. Thank you for your attention and to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So basically he has denounced that that the United States would be withdrawing its troops, 4,000 troops from Poland. Not only that, but it's now going to be apparently 5,000 rather than just 4,000. And this is after Trump's U-turn. How large will the US force in Poland be? I assume it will be 5,000 troops as per Trump's announcement, but let's see. Maybe my calculation on this is completely incorrect, but I assume that's the case. US President Donald Trump has said Washington will send 5,000 fresh troops to Poland, just weeks after the Pentagon alarmed officials by halting a planned brigade deployment there. So how many US troops will now be in Poland? Good question. The US maintains around 10,000 troops in the country at any given time, but most of these forces are rotational, deployed for periods typically lasting 6 to 9 months. The news last week that Washington had halted a 9-month tour of duty to Poland of 4,000 Texas-based soldiers brought confusion and a strong backlash from Democrats and Republicans in Congress. I guess Poland is just a very bipartisan supported ally of the United States. I guess both the Democrats and the Republicans see Poland as a valuable ally or something. That surprises me a bit, but I guess that's the case if there was backlash. Trump then seemed to make a U-turn, saying on Thursday that the US would now send an additional 5,000 troops to Poland, which we can speculate why this sort of radical change. But it would be very strange to actually screw over Poland like this. That is something that Russia would be very happy about, but that is very strange way to treat a country that is so absurdly loyal. Marcin Przydasz, Polish President Karol Nawrocki's top foreign policy advisor, told TVP World exclusively that a minimum of 11,000 US troops will now be rotated through Poland.
Barry!
Oh. Thank you for the $50, Glitchmasta. Sorry for upsetting you. Allow me to affirm your gender by giving you money and accusing you of being a creature of deceit and a gold digger. Oh, thank you. Deceit and gold digger, thank you. I am a gold digger, thank you. Thank you for the $50. Thank you very much. I am grateful to you, as always. Thank you. I am actually trying to get out of a debt as well, because my bank account has a block on it, technically speaking, which means that when I have too much money on my bank account, it gets blocked. So I actually have a certain amount of money right now on my account that is blocked, but that's neither here nor there. I'll get through it. I'll grow to be a small streamer, not a micro streamer, and I'll pay off my debt, and it'll be okay. And I'll go back on my tricky. I'm gonna do all these things. Alright, let's continue in this topic. I'm gonna have to maneuver around this bit. I'm gonna have to timestamp around this bit. That is true. That happens when you have debt. No, it's bank account. It's okay. The money on PayPal is safe, and your donation went to PayPal, so that money is safe, at least. From the bank's grabby hands. It's not the banks, it's the debt collector's grabby hands. Well, whatever. My debt is about $5,000, which might not sound like a huge amount. It is a pretty big amount for me nonetheless. Okay, let's focus. Let's go back to the segment. Let's go back to the news. So President Sandy is streaming, so technically speaking I could call on to him and argue with him about conscription or something and be called a fascist. Okay, let's continue. He seemed to suggest that the deployment of 5,000 troops promised by Trump would replace the earlier rotation, but with an extra 1,000 troops, which makes sense, right? There was supposed to be 4,000, it was withheld, and then Trump said, no, it's actually gonna be 5,000 instead of 4. So 11,000 calculus makes kind of sense. Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said he understood the levels would remain more or less the same as until recently. Speaking at the Globes Forum in Prague on Friday, Poland's top diplomat joked that the confusion surrounding recent US troops decision had misled Russian President Vladimir Putin. That's what strategic deception looks like, Sikorski said. I mean, maybe. I feel like there was a willingness to throw Poland under the bus, and then there was last second course correction based on the backlash. That is my opinion. I think that MAGA and Trump were very ready to just throw Poland under the bus, and then kind of course corrected. Przydasz, speaking to TVP World at the same summit, said Polish officials would use the fact Trump promised additional troops to push Washington to send even more soldiers, adding, "We are quite ambitious." Is that so? I mean, being too dependent on the United States, especially under Trump, is not it's not an especially good strategy. It's not an especially good thing to do. It's risky, I would put it lightly. I genuinely think that Europe should just make a European army at this point. There should be a European Union army and an integrated weapons industry. That is my opinion, rather than depending on weapon sales from the United States and troops of the United States, because those things can be very flimsy. President Donald Trump is a very flimsy man, and I'm not sure that you can depend on him when it comes to certain assurances. Permanent versus rotational US forces. Only a small fraction of US troops in Poland are permanently based in the country, with estimates putting the permanent US presence at around 300 to 500 personnel, mainly command staff and logistic specialists. The vast majority deployed from the US or other NATO bases are on temporary tours, a model that supports NATO's deterrence posture on the alliance's eastern flank while keeping forces flexible and scalable. Key formations include the Grey Wolf and Blackjack brigades from the US Army's 1st Cavalry Division. These heavy armored units are deployed from Fort Cavazos, Texas to Poland and neighboring NATO countries for joint training and live exercises. It was reportedly the Blackjack Brigade that had been preparing for a 9-month rotation to Poland when their deployment was halted, but it is unclear if the same troops will be included in the additional 5,000 mentioned by Trump. Costs of US forces in Poland. The cost of hosting US troops is shared between Washington and Warsaw. The Polish government said last year it contributes around 54,800 zlotys, 12,900 euro annually per soldier, taking the cost of maintaining 10,000 troops each year to around 550 million zlotys, 130 million euro. Poland is also set to invest about $500 million to expand and modernize US military facilities on its territory, fully funding the upgrades in a move aimed at strengthening NATO's eastern flank. Which, of course, I don't have to explain why the lack of US troops in Poland would embolden Russia, would show that the US is showing a decreasing commitment to NATO, decreasing commitment to security of NATO countries, and that perhaps Russia is in a far better position when it comes to its satellites and former Soviet states than one would think. That perhaps in the future, if Russia would attack Poland, then maybe NATO would not go in its support, especially if the United States would withdraw forces from Poland. That would be a clear signal to the Kremlin that the United States support is wavering, to say the least. It would definitely send some sort of positive signal to the Kremlin to the effect of, hey, maybe our intervention in case of an attack is not as guaranteed as you would assume. So yeah, that's the news about the deployment of NATO, or rather of US troops in Poland. There's been a lot of nervousness in Poland around this topic. There was a lot of question as to whether or not Poland has been abandoned by the United States, but it seems like this is not the case just yet. It seems that we are safe for now. We'll see if we will remain safe for the foreseeable future. But for now, it seems like we are okay. Alright. I want to talk about the topic of transness, transgenocide, all these topics that have been debated to death. But now the topic is resurfacing because of laws on the books. I wonder if Kentucky has done it. Kentucky. I want to pull up an article about this because this is, if true, especially if this is put into law, then it's one of the most crazy developments when it comes to trans rights in the United States. And I don't know if other states are copying this model, but Kentucky being trans labeled as mental illness. Let's see if Google will respond to that. There you go, it's true. In recent Kentucky legislative sessions, efforts to label being transgender as a mental illness have centered around teacher certification bills and amendments. So there you go, let's see. Clear Kentucky. No, Kentucky is not about to quietly kick all trans teachers out. Let me see. I've been doing this research on politicians. Fact check. There you go. I've been hearing about this. I've been wanting to look into it. Let's see. Protect trans kids. I'm proud of enemy of the state. Well, it is good to be an enemy of the state from time to time. The state can be a pretty bad entity, indeed. No, Kentucky is not about to quietly kick trans teachers out of the classroom. So, no, Kentucky is not set to quickly and quietly declare transgender people mentally ill this week. Okay, that's good. I'm happy to hear this because apparently there were. I've heard on a stream today that Kentucky was planning to do this, so I'm glad that this fact check is proving me incorrect because that is definitely a worrying development if it would be the case. I would definitely be worried for the future of trans people in the United States if that were to be the case. But it seems like I am mistaken, which is good. And no, Kentucky's GOP-dominated legislature is also not about to silently kick trans people out of teaching in the last seconds of the 2026 legislative session. Y'all, I am once again respectfully begging you to get your Kentucky politics news from reporters here in the Bluegrass State because I fear national and international news outlets have once again gotten things wrong. Like, really wrong. Okay. Because I've actually listened to a debate in The Line today and I've heard that Kentucky is actually trying to label being trans as a mental illness. So let's see if this fact check checks out and if we can put this rumor to rest. Hopefully a rumor, because again, if it were to be the case that Kentucky would be planning to label being trans as a mental illness, then that would be a distressing development indeed. All right. A Kentucky bill turned last second floor amendment hoping to label trans people as unfit to teach, bar them from getting or keeping teaching licenses, and forcing teachers suspected of being trans to undergo medical examination to stay in the classroom is not expected to pass as Kentucky winds down its legislative session. Okay, so I guess the thing is that they did push for such a bill. They did push for a bill to label trans people as mentally ill, but it will just simply not pass. That this bill does not have a chance of passing, which effectively means that it's not really worth worrying about. There's nothing to worry about. Queer Kentucky knows this due to our knowledge of Kentucky's legislative process, along with the backing of multiple sources who have been working in and around the bill amendment. We've been covering LGBTQ plus bills and issues throughout Kentucky's 2026 legislative session, so let us break down exactly what's going on and why other outlets are getting it wrong. Brace yourselves. In order to fully and properly explain this, we may need to go get a little wonky, so prepare yourselves as well. I'm not sure if there are any people watching this stream, this particular stream, that are from Kentucky, but if you are, I'm here to bring good news. You are safe as a trans person for a bit longer anyway. Earlier this month, Sen. Jax Williams, a Republican from Northern Kentucky, filed Senate Bill 351. This bill aimed to keep trans people from being able to get and keep teaching licenses in Kentucky, effectively kicking them out of the classroom. So I guess this is the bill that would label trans people as mentally ill. The bill went nowhere. It didn't even get a Senate committee assignment, which is the first step in the legislative process. It was not going to pass. Okay, so it was just a futile attempt at throwing stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. And in this case, it didn't. It does not. Last week, Williams withdrew the bill, but then quickly refiled the same thing as a floor amendment to a different, previously super uncontroversial bill, House Bill 759. This was basically a last-ditch attempt at getting his bill through, which is pretty pathetic. Imagine being such a bigot that you do all that's in your power to label a whole group as mentally ill. A floor amendment does not just get automatically added to a bill. When a bill gets brought up for a vote on the House or Senate floor, any proposed floor amendments have to be individually voted on in order to be added to the bill, and then they vote on the bill itself. Yes, this has been happening with Ukraine when people decided to add amendments such as let's cut all aid to Ukraine, let's ban all future aid to Ukraine, etc., etc. There have been such crazy amendments. None of them ever passed. Look, there were Republicans that actually did attempt to add such amendments to Ukraine aid bills, which is a hilarious thing to behold. HB 759 was on this thing called the consent calendar, basically a batch of unproblematic bills that they lump together and vote on all at once to save time. This is where a lot of the inaccurate reporting went wrong. When a bill on the consent calendar gets a floor amendment, it automatically gets pulled from the consent calendar and gets treated like any other bill. The amendment doesn't simply just get added to the bill without a debate and slipped through. If that's how this worked, we'd have a lot of issues. I agree we would. This would mean that you could slip in the shittiest of changes under the guise of just adding an amendment to a non-controversial bill. That would actually create a whole mess, and it would be a lot easier for people to make the United States unlivable for a whole bunch of minorities. But Williams' floor amendment also breaks the Senate's rule around piggybacking. It is literally in their rule book that you can't just add a majority or entirely of an unsuccessful bill to a different bill as a floor amendment. Well, it makes sense. You should not be able to do that. Queer Kentucky has been told that because of this, Williams is expected to withdraw his amendment before the bill gets a vote. And if he doesn't, the amendment is expected to be struck down because, again, it breaks the rules. Well, basically, it's a nothing burger. This quite literally is a nothing burger. I've heard so much scaremongering about Kentucky moving to treat trans people as mentally ill, but I guess this is just an example of things being misreported, which is why reporting things correctly is so important. Checking your information, double checking, triple checking your sources, etc. is like very, very important. But past that, if something happens to go awry and the amendment does get through and the Senate does pass it, the bill would then need to go back to the House, where they'd need to agree to the Senate's changes, but it is so late in the legislative session and lawmakers have much more pressing issues to take care of over the next 2 days. It is unlikely that they agree to the changes because bringing it for a vote would likely spark a lengthy debate over it. Yeah, of course, trans issues always spark a lengthy debate. Of course, Queer Kentucky will be keeping a close eye on this situation in the coming days. Lawmakers meet Tuesday and Wednesday before heading home for the veto period. About 2 weeks where Governor Andy Bashar gets to go through all of the bills they've passed so far and decide what to do with them. Stay tuned to Queer Kentucky's website and social media feeds for all things Kentucky politics from folks who actually know what they're talking about. Glitchmaster says, which is why supporting your favorite streamer like Lucy is important, because she'll find the cold, hard facts. Yes, I will find the truth, and I will not color it favorably. It'll be hard truths. So I've been really curious about this. I've been really worried about this. I actually thought that Kentucky was pushing forward a legislation that would declare trans people as mentally ill, but it seems like it was all a bunch of fear mongering, so we don't have to worry. Here we go. But I'm still glad that I covered it. I'm still glad that I took a second to check if this actually is accurate. And I am very happy to report, which might seem very strange to say, but I am actually very happy to report that this in fact is not factual information. It's not true. I'm happy to report that this is not true. All right. Very good. Shall we go to the next? Let's check NPR. Any questions on the matter? Also, apologies for starting the stream so late. I had a meeting because I actually do a lot of different stuff. I do a lot of different activities, and let's just say that things have gotten busy. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done outside of just streaming, you know, and it all needs to be done for the greater good of the land. But it's okay. When things are busy, things are actually quite good. Maybe we'll do some gaming after news if there's interest. If there's enough people tuning in. I feel like when I start stream later than the usual time, that causes less people to tune in. Okay, NPR News. National news, and by national news we mean the US, I guess. Let's see if there's anything interesting. Weird news. I don't see. Maybe Reuters. Maybe we will find more interesting news on Reuters. Sorry, what? Exclusive. Trump official tried to ban half of US voting machines, citing conspiracy theories. Well, this feels interesting. This looks interesting to me. This looks like something that we could be looking into, doesn't it? Does it not look like something that would be interesting to you all, everyone? Everybody, all of you? Trump admin wanting to vote half of the voting machines. I believe that they've been crying about the voting machines when it came to the 2020 election, didn't they? Then the Trump sycophants. Okay. So voting machines. Hello, Maya Mayor. How are you? I'm a little bit tired, I will admit, but show must go on. Show must go on. I owe you news, especially since I've not been covering news for a bit. I've only been doing gaming, art, and slop. And I know that all of my viewers have subscribed to me because I'm a professional political pundit. I'm a professional commentator and also a journalist. You come to me for my journalisms and for my commentary. So that is what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to focus on. All right. Exclusive. Trump official tried to ban half of U.S. voting machines, citing conspiracy theories. Effort to exclude Dominion voting. Yeah, Dominion voting machines. Those were the ones that Trump complained so much about in 2020. Collapsed after Trump aide fails to deliver proof of vote rigging. Trump officials have sought federal control over elections and a shift to paper ballots. Most U.S. jurisdictions already use machines with audible paper trails. Trump repeats debunked claims about Dominion voting machines despite lack of evidence, because when has lack of evidence stopped Donald Trump from doing anything? Never ever. He doesn't care about evidence. He doesn't care about truth. He cares about the narrative that he very carefully crafts, that he can push in order to get what he wants. That is what he cares about, not evidence or truth. He cares about facilitating power. He cares about meeting his goals, and he does not care what he has to do it to achieve those things. Washington, May 22nd. U.S. President Donald Trump's elections security czar last year sought to ban voting machines used in more than half of U.S. states by asking whether the Commerce Department could declare their components national security risks, according to two people with direct knowledge of the matter. White House advisors Kurst Olsen, a lawyer Trump has tasked with proving widely debunked election rigging conspiracy theories, pushed the plan to target Dominion voting systems machines. Of course, they're not rigged. Of course, there's nothing wrong with them. Of course, there was no foul play with those machines. But if Trump gets rid of them, it is actually easier for him to rig the elections, ironically enough. Because those machines actually keep a paper trail. Oh, the irony. The idea emerged, the sources said, as Olsen and other officials brainstormed about how the federal government could take control over elections from U.S. states, an idea Trump publicly aired. Olsen wanted a national system of hand-counted paper ballots, the sources said, a frequent Trump demand some election security experts say would be less accurate and potentially riskier than the current system of machines with auditable paper trails that almost all cities and states use. The plan to exclude the machines reported here first go far enough that in September, Commerce Department officials began exploring what grounds could be invoked to execute it. 3 additional sources said it eventually collapsed, however, because Olsen and other administration staffers working with him failed to provide evidence to justify such a move. 2 of their sources said. So, just like when Trump went to court to declare that the election has been rigged, there was also no evidence of that, and all of the cases have been dismissed. So it was basically same thing. The episode is part of a far-reaching Trump administration push to encroach on state and local governments' authority to run elections, which is granted to them in the U.S. Constitution to prevent the executive branch from seizing power, which is something that Trump would like. Olsen is working with the nation's top intelligence and law enforcement agencies to chase voting rigging claims. Yes, chasing voter rigging in order to be able to enact voter rigging. Classic. A Reuters investigation earlier this month found administration officials and investigators in at least 8 states have sought confidential records, pressed for access to voting equipment, and re-examined voter fraud cases that courts and bipartisan reviews have rejected, as I've said before. Trump and Republican allies are also pursuing unprecedented plans to redraw election districts earlier than usual to secure advantages in the November midterm congressional elections, which is something that we all should be paying close attention to. Who is running, where they are running, what they are running on, what's their policy, their district. If you're from the US, you should be paying close attention to these things already. Who is your local person that you'll be voting for? What's their policy? What's their program? I would recommend to visit their campaign page and take a look. What does the opposition have to offer? What if it's a republic? Like, if you look at what the Republicans have to offer and then pressure your Democratic person so that they don't fall behind. Others involved in the deliberations included Paul McNamara, a senior aide of Trump's spy chief Tulsi Gabbard, who resigned on Friday, and Brian Sikma, special assistant to Trump, whose work on his domestic policy council, according to one of the two sources with direct knowledge of the matter, Olsen has worked closely with Gabbard's office on the Director of National Intelligence. Earlier summer, McNamara asked officials in the Commerce Department to consider the potential designation of Dominion chips and software as a national security risk, the two sources said. At the time of McNamara headed on an ODNI task force that worked with officials across the administration to investigate vulnerabilities in the nation's voting machines. The two sources said McNamara spoke about the issue to senior officials at the U.S. Commerce Department, which is run by Secretary Howard Lutnick. Reuters could not determine whether Lutnick was involved in or aware of those discussions. A Commerce Department spokesperson said Lutnick never met or discussed election integrity issues with McNamara and did not engage in the topic at all. The spokesperson declined to comment on whether Lutnick's office or other officials were involved. Olivia Coleman, a spokesperson for Gabbard's agency, said ODNI, including McNamara, did not brief on nor coordinate a plan with the Department of Commerce to take actions to ban Dominion voting machines. Olsen, McNamara, and Sikma did not respond to requests for interviews. Responding to this story, Democratic U.S. Senator Alex Padilla said Olsen should be fired, calling him a threat to democracy in a post on X. So you can see this whole thing is a mess. Worries about more election chaos, which of course the Republicans are going to create as much election chaos as physically possible, because Trump is doing all in his power, thank God, Trump is doing all in his power to ensure that the Democrats will win possibly both the House and the Senate. But we'll see. Trump's boneheaded policy is creating a pretty big opening for the Democratic Party. If it can capitalize on that chance, we'll just have to see. But there definitely has been an opening created for the Democratic Party. We will have to observe the situation and see if something will come of it. Democrats and election integrity experts worry that with Republicans expected to suffer losses in the midterms, the administration aims to suppress voting and pave the way to challenge losses with more baseless claims of election fraud, which is probably going to be happening a lot. More than 98% of U.S. election jurisdictions already produce a paper record for every vote, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission said last year. Those votes are mostly cast on machines that print a paper record or hand-marked but counted by electronic readers. Election security experts broadly supported the current combination of technology and paper ballots, which provides a voter-verified trail for post-election audits. And post-election audits is not something that Trump is probably a big fan of. Proponents of hand-marked, hand-counted ballots argue they eliminate hacking concerns, but they pose different risks, said Alex Halderman, a University of Michigan computer science professor, including counting mistakes and ballot box stuffing, which I'm not saying there are people that would like that to be a possibility, but you know what? I believe that there are some people that would definitely like for this to be a possibility. Changing to hand counting would be chaotic, he said, and it might facilitate cheating. I wonder if there is a president that is currently not doing well, who's dropping when it comes to approval rating, who's doing a lot of bad moves, both domestically and internationally, who would welcome the possibility of being able to cheat in the midterms. I wonder. I'm curious about this. Well, whatever. Let's not speculate. My job is not to speculate. My job is to report. And that is exactly what I'm doing. Changing to hand counting would be chaotic. White House spokesman Davis Ingle characterized the reporting for the story as selectively leaked and called it misinformation. Scoring voting machines for traces of foreign adversaries. Oh my God. US supply chain rules give the Commerce Secretary powers to restrict transactions with technology companies from nations designated foreign adversaries, including China, Russia, and specifically the government of Venezuela's former president Nicolas Maduro, whom the US military unseated from power in January. I don't know. At this point, I'm not even sure if Russia is truly considered a foreign adversary to the United States under Trump. I think they're more like a friendly country at this point, no? Considering that Donald Trump has calls with Putin almost on a weekly basis or something. And specifically, blah, 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 a main focus of Olson's efforts to find evidence of foreign hacking is the debunked theory that Dominion machines were infected with code controlled by Venezuelans to steal the 2020 election from Trump. The two sources said, "Oh, so it's Venezuela that rigged the election in 2020." Okay. Oh, makes perfect sense. Except it makes actually no sense at all. Yes, it's Venezuela rigged the election in 2020 via voting machines. Because of course. Repeated investigation and lawsuits since 2020 have produced no evidence. Dominion machines were hacked. In 2023, Fox News paid Dominion $787 million in defamation case over false election rigging claims. So case closed, I guess. But no, of course, case not closed. Now they want to revisit this mess and cause more trouble. In 2024, at least 27 states used Dominion machines similar to the number in 2020. Denver-based Dominion was purchased last October by Liberty Vote USA of Colorado. Our total focus remains on working in partnership with our customers, the dedicated election officials across the nation who are utilizing the election systems to deliver secure, accessible, and transparent elections, Liberty Vote said in a statement. Yet, Trump continues to repeat the allegations, most recently on May 12, when he reposted a 6-year-old clip of a host on the far-right One America News Network making the false claim that the Dominion machines deleted millions of votes. Because of course, Trump doesn't care about facts. Trump will repeat a lie no matter how often it is debunked. Trump will keep claiming that he has reduced the price of drugs by several 100%, 1,000%, and he will double, triple, quadruple on it. He can say the most unhinged nonsense, throw out the most baseless of accusations, but he will not take responsibility. He will not take ownership of the mistakes because he wants to push a narrative. He doesn't care about the facts of the matter. In May 2025, Olsen helped lead a federal mission that seized the Dominion machines that Puerto Rico used in its 2024 gubernatorial election. An analysis of the machines by cyber contractor Mojave Research Incorporated, produced later that summer, found some known vulnerabilities, but no Venezuelan origin code or evidence of hacking. There you go. Around the time McNamara's conversation took place with Commerce Department officials, Olsen's team took apart some of the Puerto Rico's machines, believing that they would find components manufactured by countries designated as foreign adversaries, the two sources said. The team found one chip packaged in China by US company Intel. Such chips are not generally considered a threat to US national security. Other chips were packaged in Japan, South Korea, and Malaysia, the two sources said. Olsen's report on the teardown, they said, described the chips as East Asian, which they believe was intended to obscure the failure to find any security risks. Because of course, there was no security risk, there was no breachment of security. It's all a conspiracy theory to consolidate power for Donald Trump. To actually prepare grounds for a possible rigging of the elections by Donald Trump. A September White House meeting convened to discuss the machines included cyber experts. At the National Security Council, two of the sources said the group, which included Olsen's team, discussed whether Dominion's equipment contained traces of Venezuelan code. One of the sources said. Following the meeting, a Commerce Department political appointee asked the department's office that assesses foreign national security risks to tech supply chains to consider options to address any risks posed by voting machines. According to the three additional sources, the office considered the matter but took no action, two of the sources said. So there you have it. Trump is trying his best to make it seem like there is a danger to the voting system. He will try to exploit that in order to build electoral advantages for himself, possibly rig the thing if necessary. And there you have it. What a nonsensical world we are living in. And therefore, I don't even know. I don't even know what to do with this. Complete false narratives. Complete nonsense. Alright. We've covered a few news topics. So now I will end the news stream. We've only streamed for an hour, but we've covered 3 topics. Yeah, 3 topics. How many topics have we covered? 2 or 3? I have to think. 3 topics. We covered 3 topics. So now I will go rest a bit, and then we will do the second stream. This stream is short, but that's good. That means that Fake Alec Parker will have no problem with editing. downloading and editing the segments that I will make out of the stream. I will rest a bit now, and after that we will do a different type of stream. Everything is going according to plan. Thank you, and see you very, very soon. I will raid you to somebody, of course. President Sunday is streaming. And now Rezi, I will raid you to Rezi. Okay, I'll see you soon. I'm not gonna say bye bye, I'm just gonna say see you soon.